Okay, everybody, welcome back to Computer Science Grade 10. And today we're going to be looking at if statements. So, got my notes open, my pretty colorful notes. And if statements, the fancy way to call them is a conditional control structure. So right here in the green, we got some actual code. So we say if some condition, then we can make some statements. So we can do some stuff here, and then that ends the if. Conditions, now we talked briefly last unit about Boolean variables. Conditions have to be Boolean. So that means either a true or false statement. We're going to use the equal sign a lot. Here's a Boolean statement right here. So if I say guess equals 7, you can either say true or false, right? So here's some actual code. You can say if guess equals 7, then maybe display this message here. So there it is, Boolean expressions. This is a table that has what we call the relational operators. Okay, so you guys will see these in math class, right? So here's equal to, less than or equal to. These are the operators that you can use in if statements. All right. Now we're going to make our own little program, but just really quickly, we'll look at a number guess one. So I just grabbed this from the textbook and created it and then did a screenshot here. So it's kind of like a guessing game. So there's a secret number, it's 2, and then we get a guess from the user calling it guess. So here's me getting the guess, and then just a simple program that just, if the guess is equal to the secret number, then we just say you guessed it. Maybe we can, let's make that, but let's make it better. So let's go to VB, and let's create a new project, and we're going to make a Windows form app, and we'll call it guessing game. Here we go. I'm very excited. There. So, in our toolbox, what do we need? We need a label. We'll need a couple labels. So I'll just grab one for now. We'll need a text box to get the user guess. And maybe a button. And that might be it for now. So I'm just going to grab my label and go Control-C and copy it a few times. I think I'm going to need 3 or 4, so that'll be good for now. Now just remember my trick. If you highlight everything and go over to the font, you can kind of change all the fonts at once, which is nice. Make everything a bit bigger. So we'll throw that button down there. We'll make that text box a little bit bigger. We'll just grab one of our labels and put it there. We'll have a couple labels for messages. We're going to cheat. So I'm going to put a label down here that says what our secret number is. And I'm going to go ahead and start renaming things just kind of at random. So the button, I'm going to call it BTN guess. And I'm going to change the text property to guess. And this text box, I'm going to call it TXT user guess. This label in front of it, I'm just going to call it LBL TXT prompt. So I know it's the prompt for the text box. And the text is going to say something like, guess a number between, let's go 0 and 50. Move that over. Well, that's good. And this label here, we're going to call it, whoops, call it LBL response. LBL response. And we'll just make it blank, so an empty label for now. Perfect, so there's our design view. Okay, let's go to the code window now. So, we're going to insert our code for the button guess. And I saw an unnamed label here. I'm going to quickly go investigate that. So just remember, you can click this drop-down menu, label 2. Oh yes, I did forget about that label. We're going to call that LBL secret. And we're going to make it blank for now. So LBL secret down in the bottom. Okay. So here we go. I'm going to write some pseudocode here just to demonstrate that. So what do I need to do to make a guessing game? Well, I need to get the user guess. And possibly before that, I need to get my secret number. I'm going to call it get set. So I'm either going to get it using a random variable, or I'm going to set it manually. But then I'm going to get the user guess, and then I'm going to check the user guess, and display a message. Yeah, that would be good. So pseudocode can be just that easy. It can be as detailed as you like, but just some kind of structure so that you sort of have some very specific tasks that you can get going on, right? It's hard to do something that is 20 steps, but if you break it down, you know, if it's one big task, if you break it down into 20 steps, boy, will it be easier to do. So let's go ahead and we'll set our secret number. I'm not going to make it constant. I'm just going to call it dim secret num as integer, and for now we'll just set it to say 25. And I just realized I'm gonna have my cheat code label. Set the label to say the secret number for testing, right? We want to be able to test our program, so we want to be confident that LBL secret is telling us the secret number. Boy, is that IntelliSense handy. So there's those two steps. And right, once you have your pseudocode, you might find that it might change, right? So you might do a step and be like, oh, actually, there's another step I need to do. So that's kind of what happened here. Now, to get the user guess, well, I'm going to have to declare a variable for that. So I'm going to go dim user guess as integer. And we're going to make it become the value from the text box. So from txt userguess.text, we're going to get that value. We're going to store it inside that integer. And then we're going to actually go display or check the user guess. So this is where we're going to use an if statement. So for now, it's going to be quite simple. I'm just going to say if the user guess is equal to the secret num, then when you hit enter, it's going to automatically put in the end if for you. Well, if that's the case, then I'm going to say you guessed it. So I'm going to go to lblresponse.text. I'm going to make it say you guessed correctly. And that would be it for a basic game. Now, we'll run it for now, and then we'll make it better. We'll make it that it gives us a hint maybe after this. But for now, if I enter in, say, like, I don't know, 2, and hit guess, I can see my secret number coming up down here. And because I didn't guess it, I get no feedback, so that's not very good. If I enter in 25, it says you guessed correctly. So let's add some feedback to this. Okay, let's add some functionality here using if statements to kind of give us a hint. So we're going to add some else ifs in here. So if you have more than one condition that you'd like to test, you can just add an else if. So we're going to click here, I'm going to hit enter, and I'm going to type else if. Okay, so else if, what are the things that can happen? Well, the user guess might be greater than the secret number. So in that case, if it's greater than, and notice that relational operator right there, if it's greater than the secret number, then maybe we want to print a message that says too high. Oh, that'd be good. What else can happen? So we got another else if here. So else if, well, what if the user guess is less than the secret num? Well, in that case, we'd want to display a message that says too low. That would be some good feedback. So we're going to run it now. And now if I enter in, say, 2, I see that I'm too low. If I enter in 26, because that's close to my secret number, I get too high. If I enter 51, it still says too high. We can deal with that. It says 0 and 50, so we can actually code that in. Let's do that next. Let's try guessing 25. So that still works, as you guessed correctly. So there's something called an else. Now what the else does is if none of these conditions work out, so if I get false, 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 then it will hit the else and it's going to execute that. So the else is sort of the catch-all. It's like, if none of these work, do this thing. Okay, so else's don't have conditions because the condition for an else is that all the other if-else ifs before it were false. So I'm trying to think, I'm like, there's if I'm not equal to the secret num, if I'm not greater than or less than, the only other thing is maybe I guessed out of range. Maybe. Is that going to work? Yes. No, it won't. It won't work at all. But let's put in a default response because I went ahead and I explained it all. So let's just say else. Let's just say you hit the else statement. Well, we should never see that happening in the code. I hope that's not confusing. Let's add another else if. So we're going to do what's called a compound Boolean statement, which is a little bit ahead in the notes, but that's okay. So we're going to say if the user guess is greater than 50, the user guess is less than 0, then... So let me explain for a moment. An OR means if this is true or this is true, you're going to execute this statement. Okay, so basically if I'm guessing out of bounds, we want to tell that to the user. So we'll just say that LBL response.text, we're going to say guess out of bounds, guess between 0 and 50, something like that. There. I'll run that. So now if I guess 51 or something like that, well, it didn't work. Let me try again. Of course. Why is this happening? This is happening because the first statement that is true is the one that will execute. So obviously I did that on purpose to demonstrate that. But yeah, if I enter in 51, user guess is greater than secret num, so this gets triggered. All right, so the order that you put stuff in matters. Okay, so if I want this to execute properly, I need to put this else if either as the very, very first if, or I'm thinking it will work correctly if I put it in here. So if my user guess is a secret number, I'm okay to say you guessed correctly. Otherwise, we're going to check and make sure we're not out of bounds. Otherwise, we'll check if we're too high or too low. Okay, let's see if that works. That was scary. So if I enter in 51, there we go. Now I get guess out of bounds. But if I enter in 50, now it says too high. If I enter in -1, so that'd be, again, out of bounds. But if I enter in, say, 0, I get that it's too low. If I guess 25, I guessed correctly. Excellent.